Hey, A1 fans, AJ here. We got the inside scoop of what Cisco's releasing today, so stay with us. All right, I'm here with Gerard, Tech House 570, and Tim Bertino, one of the co-hosts from the Art of Network Engineering podcast. Gerard is at G Cavalinas on the Twitters. Tim is at Tim Bertino. I am at No Blinky Blinky. All right, so today is February 3rd, and Cisco is making some exciting announcements to a lot of their product lineups. And myself, Gerard, and Tim have all been kind of privy to that announcement thanks to the Cisco Champions program.
So AJ, since this is our first YouTube briefing for Cisco Champions, can you kind of go into what the Cisco Champion program is?
Absolutely. So the Cisco Champions program are a group of influencers and advocates for Cisco. So they're mostly content creators, folks that, produce content around networking that usually touches or talks about Cisco. Cisco is obviously a brand leader in the networking space, and to pull us in as part of the Cisco Champions program, one of the benefits I feel that we get is, we get to talk to technical marketing engineers and product managers and learn about these awesome releases well before or in advance of their release date, so we can create content and inform everybody else about what's coming. It's a really cool program. You can sign up as of right now, depending on when you're watching the video. Cisco Champion 2022 applications are open, so you can hit the link in the description and apply and join us the next time we have a super top secret briefing. So lots happening on the super cool release. There's quite a few products that are being announced. Most of them are enhancements. They're not necessarily brand new products being released. The first out of the trio is Cisco DNA-Center release 232. Lots of cool new features coming in 232. If you have DNA-Center or if you're considering deploying DNA-Center, maybe this will help tip you over. Gerard, can you give us a summary of a couple of the things that you saw from the presentation that you're looking forward to?
Absolutely, guys. And thank you again for having me. I thought with Cisco DNA-Center, what was one of the coolest things right out of the gate, and that's maybe because of just is the Thousand Eyes integration, right? Thousand Eyes, especially since last year too at Cisco Live, I really dove in more when I was creating content around that. And one of the cool things about it was how they were beginning to integrate into their Catalyst 9000 series switches. So now you have direct access and visibility in a whole new way that none of us ever had. So that was one of the nice features that I thought was really great about it. The AP Reboot configuration is cool too, right? How many times that it gives us the option to reboot a bunch of APs, cycle them, make sure, all the firmware and everything is met is going to be another great feature. The endpoint probing, I wanted to kind of dive into a little more. I thought that was very interesting. What that does is it kind of gives you access. So a lot of times too, when we're setting these passwords, instead of having, a massive long character password, it gives you a better way to kind of secure it, have it be a little bit easier and more memorable, and then this way also lock that endpoint down a lot more efficiently. So there's going to be a ton of customer benefits, both from the technical and non-technical side on it, that I'm looking forward to as well.
I know that, as somebody that used to do the operations and management, setting up a computer here and there, I am totally guilty of creating that first user account, putting in a stupid weak password, I'll remove the account after I deploy the laptop. No big deal. And I think that this is a really good way to tie up loose ends like that, right? It's going to find those weak accounts and give you the opportunity to upgrade or remove the account, upgrade the password on it anyway.
I'm sure we're all guilty. How many times can I tell you that I use the password healthcare 2022? I can tell you every time. It got so bad myself that I got annoyed with it. And I used to tell my, coworkers okay, we're not going to use healthcare 2022 anymore. And then they would use healthcare 2023, which defeated the whole purpose. But I'm just as guilty. I feel in any capacity.
Right.
Just as guilty.
I do want to jump on the wireless side of this for a minute and talk about the AI enhanced RRM. So radio resource management is used so your controller of your APs can make your APs act as a cohesive unit in the RF space. So a big challenge is that wireless environments change. Things happen, walls go up, people can put in new equipment that can add in interference. And what Cisco's adding into this version of DNA-Center is the enhanced RRM with AI Ops that's going to allow those calculations to help your APs decide what channel they should be on for the different bands and what the transmit power should be. So I think the more information that DNA-Center can pull in, more telemetry it can pull in to then provide actionable intelligence and intelligence that can act on its own to change those RRM parameters throughout the environment is going to be really helpful to keep practitioners from having to get involved and make static changes to the RF environment. So that's really exciting to me.
You know, one of the things that I really appreciate what Cisco has done with DNA-Center is that the AI is driven by Cisco TAC tickets, right? Like everybody calls in with their issues and it gets cataloged. I mean, it's my understanding they have like historical records of TAC tickets all the way back to like ticket number 1, right? So all of that knowledge DNA-Center is able to tap into and recognize when it sees a problem that Cisco has seen before and suggest how to correct it. I mean, to me, that's really incredible and very insightful. Like not a lot of network engineers are going to know all of these best practices and common issues out of the box, or just knowing it, right? So having DNA-Center be able to tap into that to help you improve your network is just incredible.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I was aware of the different streaming telemetry methods that DNA-Center can pull in, but I wasn't thinking about TAC cases, and that makes a lot of sense because when you call in a TAC case, what is one of the things that the TAC engineer is going to do? They're going to look for other cases that relate to the issues that you're having. So being able to pull that in dynamically that DNA-Center can pull in and reference without even having to open up a case with TAC, that's huge.
Yeah, and they face struggles, as I'm sure all of us know, when troubleshooting, okay, well, what's the first step? So this is, and I don't like put numbers to things, but this, I feel eliminates like 80% of, okay, well, what were the initial steps and what was done? And was this a previous, like you guys said? So this just immediately gets right to the heart of it. It skips a few of those steps and it just allows them to pick up from troubleshooting right at that spot with the real-time data.
And it probably prevents a ticket being opened with TAC in the future, right? Like if DNA-Center can suggest a fix based on knowledge that Cisco has, it prevents the current user, the current network engineer from having to call TAC in the first place to remedy another basic issue, right? Like I'm sure if you attempt the fix that DNA-Center is suggesting, and for whatever reason there's something environmental that's still preventing the solution from working, then you call TAC and do further troubleshooting assistance, right? But just to have that database of answers available to you, it's awesome. Gotta love AI.
Hey, and I don't even have to generate and upload a show tech.
Tim, aren't you using DNA-Center?
Yes, I have used DNA-Center, and what I should have led with is one of the things that I really like about DNA-Center is it's a whole controller with just an insane amount of different applications and parameters that are within it. I mean, things like the SWIM module to do software image management for code upgrades, SD access, all of the different things are just applications within DNA-Center. And we all know it's just going to continue to grow. So DNA-Center can continue to be that management plane of the campus networks. And it's, there's constantly becoming more and more API integration with other tools, both Cisco and non-Cisco. So it's just going to keep growing. It's a really neat investment that they put in over the last number of years.
I love working for a partner, but I kind of wish I was back in the O&M world to be able to put my hands on and really get to know DNA-Center and deploy it. When it comes to these new technologies, I get to know them, but I only deploy them. I don't live with them on a day-to-day basis. So I just wish I had more hands-on experience with something like DNA.
I will tell you, AJ, if all DNA-Center did was software image management for code upgrades, that would be enough. I mean, that process...
That'll help substantially.
If you haven't been through that yet, that SWIM process is so intuitive to use, so easy to use. If all you want to do, you can group all the tasks in together. If you want to push code, apply it and reboot the switch all in one step. You can do it all in one step.
Wow.
Or you can just push the code and then later on do the commit and reboot during a change window. Or you can schedule it all. So you can schedule it out for a date and time, and it'll do it on its own. There's built-in pre-check and post-checks, and I think you can mess around with the parameters and put in your own as well. It's incredible. It's a huge time saver. You don't have to worry about getting code to the switch by yourself, or having to worry about the different upgrade parameters. If you're doing it manually, DNA-Center, the SWIM module just handles it all for you, and it's incredible. I love it.
Well, the next announcement that Cisco has is first, it's based off of Wi-Fi 6E. And when I was participating in the briefing announcement from Cisco, I had no idea Wi-Fi 6E was even a thing. I'm not a wireless guy. I don't follow the wireless space very closely, but I was very intrigued to hear about Wi-Fi 6E. And not only is it the next evolution of Wi-Fi 6, but it also includes 59 new channels. Incredible. So they're adding on. So today, wireless operates in 2.4 gigahertz as well as 5 gigahertz, and they're adding on additional 6 gigahertz spectrum to give us 59 additional channels to work with. That's not globally, just like all the other bands aren't globally. So depending on what country you're in, you're going to get more channels or fewer channels or whatever the case might be. And it has to do with the limitations if there's other organizations or government entities or whatever occupying that spectrum. They're not going to give it up to Wi-Fi. But I think there are quite a few countries, including the United States, that will be getting 59 new channels as part of Wi-Fi 6E.
Yeah, and I to piggyback off what you said, I'm right with you. I'm not a guy that lives in the Wi-Fi space. I know initially I'd heard little bits and pieces about it back then, so when I saw that this was going to be part of the pre-briefing, it's interesting, to hear, because I know that as we're growing as an industry and being forward thinking, this is going to change the way, from a security standpoint, from an encryption standpoint, and from the way we approach, making sure those passwords are safe. So I was really interested to dive in, and I'm still learning about it myself. There's going to be a ton of benefits to it, and the way we'll be able to scale it, how reliable it is, and to really hone in on the security. I believe it's incorporating WPA3, which is going to be kind of a mandatory requirement for it. So that's going to be exciting. I'm really looking forward to it.
Another thing I think is interesting about that, to go along with the WPA3 support, is that it would appear in the 6 gigahertz space, it's only going to support 802.11ax. So no legacy support. And what I think will be helpful there is you won't have to worry about legacy clients taking up airtime. Whereas in the 2.4 gigahertz space, that's where we have a lot of issues, because in wireless, it's kind of like the phrase, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if you have, for whatever reason, you still have to support 802.11b on the 2.4 gigahertz space, and you have those clients, it's really just going to bring the network to slower speeds for all those other clients if they have to be on 2.4 gigahertz. So the fact that there's only going to be 11ax support in the 6 gigahertz space, I think is going to kind of help future-proof that RF space over the next X amount of years. So
along with the Wi-Fi 6, so Wi-Fi 6 is coming. It's not necessarily a Cisco thing. What is coming from Cisco to support Wi-Fi 6E is the new Catalyst 9136 AP. One of the coolest things, in addition to all of the support for Wi-Fi 6E and the 6 gigahertz band, it's going to have 16 spatial streams and tri-band radios. And it's also going to include a 2.4 gigahertz IoT radio. So you're going to be able to have a remote sensor built into your AP. You probably already have sensors of some kind in your network. And you now, instead of deploying a sensor here and a sensor there and an AP here and an AP there, you can just deploy the AP and it's going to have the sensor built in.
I really like the support for the IoT capabilities. For instance, the 2.4 gigahertz radio supporting Bluetooth. So as you have future devices, so I'm thinking like things like tags that really just need to beacon to a network to push data somewhere, don't necessarily need to join an 802.11 radio, but just need to beacon, and having that onboard support for BLE, I think is is something that's really cool.
Yeah, the BLE also supports like location-based services too. So, if you're visiting a hospital and you need to learn, how to get from one point to another, you can open up a supporting app and it will use the BLE radios and the APs and, show you where you are on the map and help you navigate to where you need to get to. So that is really cool technology.
Yeah, more of that hyperlocation. That's cool.
Yeah, and think about from the voice and video perspective, how much even cleaner and crisper that's going to be, for those meetings and when we're deploying these, globally, how that's going to balance out a lot of the workload on the network itself. I'm really excited to dive into it and see, for me, I'm a hands-on learner, so I can learn about something all day. But once you're actually physically, implementing it in your environment and you see it, that's for me what I'm really going to be looking into, doing a lot of, the testing with it.
I think for anybody considering a Wi-Fi upgrade, this should be what you're looking to go to, because it's going to be a while before, Wi-Fi 6E supported devices are just ubiquitous, right? And so to deploy Wi-Fi 6E early and have it in your enterprise environment, that AP is going to be good for, at least a decade to come. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that alongside of the 9136, Cisco's also releasing a new Meraki AP, the MR57, that will also be supporting Wi-Fi 6E as well. The stats are very similar to the 9136. It'll have 2 5 gig PoE ports on it for dual power redundancy support. So if one fails, you got the other one and you're good to go. I wonder if that means we should be dual homing our APs to different IDFs.
I do think it's really important that Cisco takes the Meraki line and continues to innovate for the small office, smaller industry as well, so that they don't get left behind. So it's really cool to see them continue those advancements on the Meraki side.
Absolutely. I'm a big Meraki fanboy, man. I've deployed a lot of it. I support a lot of it, and I just really enjoy working with it.
They got awesome products.
I got them in my home. That's what my Wi-Fi network runs on. I love the security features that Meraki offers because I can keep my kids off of websites that they don't need to go to.
Yeah, I actually just got my licensing. That was one of my little home projects, if you want to call it, was to start using Systems Manager because our devices grew, right? My oldest kids got laptops this year.
Yeah.
Tablets. My wife got a new laptop, smart TVs. It expanded like that. So I needed something, and I just did a lot of. It was no question Meraki. So I implemented that. I've been working on tweaking a lot of that and setting up a lot of the system updates, patches, just really diving into it, and I love it.
It's good stuff.
Very easy, very simple out of the box to use. Just 1, 2, 3, and go.
Well, the last announcement is personally my favorite. It's my favorite because I had the opportunity to go to Cisco a number of years ago in 2019, and it was part of an influencer immersion event where we got to be a part of the announcement of the Catalyst 9000 series 9606 chassis switch. I love that switch.
Lucky.
I absolutely love that switch.
So lucky.
They also announced the Wi-Fi 6 APs, the initial run of them. So, this briefing was really cool because it's like the next iteration of all of that stuff that I got to see a few years ago. In fact, there's a 9120 AP on the shelf right there behind me. And it's like one of the pre-release ones. If you flip it over, you'll actually see there was like a pre-manufacturing run. So that thing's never going to go anywhere. It's going to stay right there on my shelf. Anyway, so Cisco is announcing today the new Catalyst 9000X series. So every single switch in the 9000 series is now going to be a 9000X. This is not a replacement for your current Catalyst 9K switches. So if you're already running 9Ks, they're not obsolete. They're still completely valid. Think of the 9000X as like another top tier kind of option in that series of switches. And what I really appreciate about this upgrade that Cisco is releasing is that this introduces the Silicon One ASICs into the enterprise networking space. Traditionally, Silicon One has been in the service provider and, kind of high-end data center space, but now it's coming into the enterprise space. And what that really means is much faster speeds in core and distribution and introducing faster speed uplinks in the access layer, including 100 gig uplinks in access layer.
Wow.
So if you're already deploying Catalyst 9Ks, particularly a chassis-based switch like a 9600 or a 9400, you don't have to get a whole new chassis. The chassis are still supported under the X. all you need to do is upgrade your supervisor cards. So you're going to get the new SUP 2 cards, and then you can get your new line cards, and everything will be fully supported. So this could be an upgrade that you do, eventually down the line. And again, you get to keep that chassis, this chassis is not obsolete. So this was one of the things that we talked about with the TME when we were being introduced to the 9606 back in 2019. So to see this coming to fruition is really, really cool.
Can we talk about PoE for a second here?
Let's talk about it.
Full 90 watt PoE in MGig on every port. I mean, you want to talk about power all the things. That is insane to me. 90 watts of power per port. I mean, that just goes to show that Cisco's trying to stay ahead of all the different IoT devices that are and can be coming into the environment, and to be able to provide that much power per port, that's crazy to me.
At 90 watts per port, you're talking about powering laptops and desktop devices.
Yeah. Thin clients and all that good stuff. That's
the power it's going to send is incredible.
The lighting in every space, right? Like you could have entire switches just dedicated to building lighting, and you're going from AC to DC. So there's a significant power savings there too.
And I know that this wasn't obviously part of the pre-briefing, but I believe, and AJ, you can help me out here. I believe there was a code level a while back that Cisco released that, introduced an enhancement to reloads and code upgrades, because you have so many different things that are powered via these switches now. You want to have minimal downtime. You would rather not have your APs and your lighting have to turn off and come back on and fully reboot. So Cisco's already had those enhancements for code upgrades to where the switch goes down, you're actually not losing PoE. So you'll lose connection when the switch reboots, but you're not going to drop AP's power, and they're not going to have to fully power back up. So that's an enhancement that they've had for a while that goes hand in hand.
I forget what they call it, but you can do a software upgrade, and it will keep the data plane forwarding traffic as long as it possibly can, and it really minimizes the reboot time. So the upgrade for the chassis switches, you upgrade your SUP card, you get the new line cards, great. If you have a fixed switch platform such as the 9500 or the 9300, there are still X versions of those being released. Some really cool enhancements to the 9500s. And this is, again, in part by the Silicon One. It can now support 2 million routes on a 9500. That is incredible. And
everybody gets a /32.
You get one, and you get one.
And just like we've seen with the Nexus platform, it now brings reversible airflow fans. So now you can pick the direction your fans need to go. So if your fan is facing the hot aisle, you can have the fans reversed in the rear and pull the cold air in through the back of the switch and then exhaust out the front of it. Or you can have it suck in through the front and blow out the back, depending on how your switch is mounted in the rack. MACsec. Everybody loves MACsec. We are now going to have WAN speed, line rate, MACsec. And if you're not familiar with MACsec, it's a layer 2 way to secure your connection between two adjacent devices, layer 2 adjacent devices. And whenever you're doing any sort of encryption, you lose line rate speed because you have to encrypt and decrypt that traffic as it's passing through the interface. So, it might be a gig interface, but you might only get, 500 bits or megabits of throughput because it's got to do that encryption and decryption. Well, now with Cisco One or with Silicon One, we're going to get full line rate MACsec. Incredible.
Not going to lose any speed. Wait, you ain't got to worry about that now.
No, you're not going to compromise speed for security.
And that's the best part. And like I said, with that too, it's going to make these things so much more simplistic to do the deployments. There's less time that you're worrying about. There's less of the issues and hassles that you're going to run into. So,
and we're also seeing an increase in speed available on the 9500X platform. We'll have 400 gig and 100 gig QSFP interfaces. Holy smokes.
So I myself have never been in the manufacturing space, but I love to see these rugged series switches when they get released, just the looks of them. So Cisco's releasing the IE9300, and these things just look like they can sustain just about anything, any environment you put them in.
They really look like they could take a punishment. They do. They're even like built, like the physical hardware design of it. It just looked like, yeah, we're ready for this.
Yeah, these new switches can operate in some pretty extreme temperatures. I feel like I need to have one here in Vermont because it's been awfully cold lately. The 9300, the Catalyst 9300X that they're releasing, one of the really cool features that they're going to be pushing with that is the idea of branch in a box. So if you're not yet deploying SD-WAN, and you should be, you can go with the SD-WAN, the branch in a box for the Catalyst 9300. So that can be your WAN edge device. It can also be your wireless controller. And then, of course, it's an access layer switch all in one. So you can do your edge routing, you can, secure your access ports, and you can control your APs all from one box.
Yeah, it's interesting that Cisco's giving that as an option because it's really been all about SD-WAN the last few years. So the fact that they're giving you another option, okay, if you're not ready to particularly do full SD-WAN everywhere, here's another option that you can still have edge connectivity, get to the cloud, get to all your different applications directly, still being secured by this branch in the box solution.
Absolutely. Guys, any final thoughts on the releases here today?
Lots of bright and shiny.
Yeah, seriously, a lot coming down the pipeline. Lots to look forward to, especially from an engineering perspective. So I'm like, I just wrote about it. I'm not like that kid on Christmas, right? You always get to play with the new toys. So for me, my next step's got to get my hands on some and definitely deploy some of these because it's going to be exciting. It's one thing, again, to learn about it. It's going to be a completely other thing to actually deploy it, see it in action. I'm excited. I can't wait.
What are you most excited for, Gerard?
It's got to be the Catalyst series switches, because, and here's the thing, I'm not going to lie. I've said this. You got me started on that. When I read that, I was like, God, he's so lucky. Like I wanted to see that, So like, it's like a story, right? That's where you began with it is, seeing that at Cisco Live a few years ago. Now we're expanding upon that. This is the next chapter and the next evolution of that. So it's going to be exciting to see how that works, especially with the Silicon One architecture being integrated in all of this.
I couldn't agree more. Tim, what are you most excited about?
I'm going to have to give it a tie. I mean, the Catalyst... The Catalyst switches that's my bread and butter. I spend a lot of time in the campus space, the access distribution. So to see those enhancements there, especially I go back to that PoE and the advancements that they keep making to minimize downtime, including the fast software upgrades to not take PoE away from devices. I think that's really cool. But I also want to go back to the AI-driven radio resource management on wireless. I mean, I personally am not a wireless expert. I need all the help I can get. So to have an environment that continues to be self-aware, driven by more and more telemetry to make changes without me having to understand the RF environment myself, that's a huge win. So I'd say it's a tie between those two things. Where are you sitting at, AJ?
I'm right there with the Catalyst 9000X series. I just love that line of switches, and to see them get some nice enhancements with the Silicon One, and just really seeing Cisco stick with the original vision for this series of switches, right? Like you don't have to completely replace an entire chassis. You can just upgrade it with line cards. I think that's got to be like unheard of, really. I mean, I'm sure it's out there, but it's nothing that I've really experienced. I've not been one to manage chassis switches in small Vermont environments. So just to see it all come to fruition is really, really cool. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are if you're watching this video. So shout out in the comments and let us know what your favorite part of this announcement is. This is going to be a steady thing for the Art of Network Engineering. As we get privy to announcements like this, we're going to create some content and let you know what's coming. So if you enjoy what you're watching, give us a like button, smash that bell icon to be notified of all these future videos, and join us next time when we have an exciting announcement from your favorite vendor.